Hello again, it's Mrs. Scarple. In this lesson, you are going to be evaluating and solving equations using function notation. Remember, function notation looks something like this. F of x could also be something like g of x, h of t, s of t, different kinds of notations. And all of these notations are just a name for an equation, a name for a function to distinguish between them. And the work we do to solve and evaluate these functions are just like we did in our previous lesson. So again, when you finish this lesson, you should be able to demonstrate how to evaluate and solve these equations using function notation. And we have had you evaluate functions before. Excuse me. When your directions give you a function like g of x equals 2x minus 3, and you're asked to find g of x, or g of negative 6, excuse me, we're taking this negative 6 and we're placing it wherever we see an x. Now keep in mind, g of negative 6 is function notation. We're not actually doing any sort of operation with that. That's going to stay part of our answer. So we're going to have g of negative 6 equals 2 times negative 6 subtract 3. And all you're going to do is simplify the right-hand side. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Subtract 3 is negative 15. So g of negative 6 is negative 15. What this means is when x is negative 6, y is negative 15. So if we wanted to write it as an ordered pair, we could write negative 6, negative 15. So let's take a look at our second function. We have p of x equals 1 minus 3 halves x, and we're going to find the value of function p when x equals negative 2. So take this negative 2 and place it wherever there is an x in this equation. Keep in mind, p of negative 2 is function notation. You're not going to do anything with this expression. It's a name. So 1 minus 3 halves times negative 2. Now remember, when you're multiplying with a fraction and you have an integer, you can write the integer over 1. So that when you multiply, and you multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, you'll end up with the fraction you need. The other thing we need to look at here is we're multiplying a negative times a negative. So that's going to become positive. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 over 2 reduces to 3. And 1 plus 3 is 4. So the value of p of negative 2 is 4. So when x is negative 2, y is going to be 4. Or it's the ordered pair 2, 4. So evaluating is just plugging in for x and simplifying the right side. When we take a look at what we have next, we're given our function f of t equals t plus 3. Find the value of t. So we're not going to plug in for t this time, for which f of t equals 6. So the function notation equals 6. That means we're going to replace the function notation with what it equals. The function notation equals 6, and that equals t plus 3. So now we can solve for t. Subtract 3, subtract 3. So we have 3 equals t. That means if we were to write an ordered pair for this, it would be 3, 6. Because the function is in terms of t, or in terms of like the x value, giving us the y value or the output 6. So if we take a look at this next one, for g of x equals 5/3 x minus 2/5, find the value of x for which g of x equals 61/35. Again, we're told we're finding the value of x, so we're not replacing x because we're finding x. We're told what the function notation equals, so we're replacing the function notation with 61/35 equals 5/3 x minus 2/5. So I need to add 2/5 to each side, and I'm going to do this over here on the side. So when I add 61/35 to 2/5, I need a common denominator. Well, 5 does go into 35 7 times, so I'm going to multiply denominator and numerator times 7. So we're going to have 61/35 added to 14/35 for a total of 75/35. So when I come back over to my problem, that becomes 0 on the right. On the left, adding these two fractions, and actually we could simplify this. 5 goes into both of these. 5 goes into 75 15 times. 5 goes into 35 7 times. So we're going to have 15/7 equals 5/3 x. Now remember, when you're dividing by a fraction, you're actually going to multiply by the reciprocal. You're going to do the dot flip. The 5/3 times 3/5 will equal 1. 3 times 15 is 45. 5 times 7 is 35 equals x. 5 goes into both of these numbers, so we can simplify this again. For our final answer of 9/7. So when you're asked to find the value of x, or you're asked to find the value of t, you're not substituting for those values. You're going to be substituting for the function notation to help you solve for those values, using your undo skills to solve. Do not use guess and check. We want you to show your work solving these problems.